Hey folks, it's Renee and welcome to another episode right here on Revv Inspiration. And today we will be discussing one of Singapore's most favorite pastimes. Today we'll be discussing about food nutrition here on Inspiration. Did you know that the 5 most common chronic illnesses in Singapore are diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, stroke, and even heart attacks, all right? And also with poor nutrition, you get the type 2 diabetes and even cancer. And to tell us more all about to eat healthy is my special guest here on Revv Inspiration. Let's go meet him. Right, folks, and joining me here on Revv Inspiration is my special guest. His name is Mr. Lim Kiat. He's the Senior Manager Programs with the Singapore Heart Foundation. And Kiat is also a Senior Nutritionist. Once again, Kiat, thank you so much for joining us here on Revv. Really nice having you on board.
Thanks for having us today.
No worries at all. Okay, so Kiat, as I mentioned, today's topic is going to be about nutrition, eating healthy and everything else. So what I've done, we've actually prepared a couple of questions, and I know you are definitely the man to answer them. It's, as I mentioned, it's all about food here today on Revv Inspiration. And the first question I have, what are the most shocking foods that are high in sodium?
This is a tough question. Really, my question for you is that make a guess, okay, between fishball noodle soup and char kway teow. Which of the following dishes do you think contains a higher amount of sodium?
Okay, I've basically eaten both of these dishes, and personally, when I eat the fishball noodle, I always put in more
the magic sauce.
Yeah, exactly. I'm guilty of that, so I would have to go with the first dish.
Smart choice.
Really, it is.
Yep. So actually, fishball noodle soup actually contains higher amount of sodium, and actually there are a few reasons to it. Right. The very first one would be the fishball. Right, the fishball. If you want that QQ, that desirable texture,
that's the whole idea by fishball.
Yeah, you need that considerable amount of salt and sodium to have that texture. Okay, so which is why fishball itself are actually very high in sodium. Okay, secondly, for the soup, to prepare that nice broth, usually they'll add in some ikan bilis, there'll be some MSG as well, and some sauce. So therefore, the soup itself will be quite laden with sodium, which is why that's something that we need to avoid as well. So all in all, for a bowl of fishball noodle soup, that's about 3000 milligram of sodium, which is about 1.5 times of the daily recommended sodium intake, and that is before you dip into the soy sauce. So if add the magic solution or the sauce into it, that will be way beyond 3000 milligrams.
So I'm basically killing myself every time I eat the fish. Okay, what you mentioned the other dish as well. So how much salt does the other dish contain?
Okay, char kway teow itself contains lower amount of sodium as compared to fishball noodle soup. Okay, but before you get too happy about it, char kway teow is actually very high in bad fats, which is the saturated fat and trans fat, which is known to promote atherosclerosis, which is the clogging of arteries. So we have to be really mindful when we're consuming char kway teow as well.
Okay, so my question is, example, when I'm eating my fishball noodle, which I'm feeling so hungry for now that you talk about it, is there any way that I can tell the hawker who's preparing it to minimize the salt content, or is he going to tell me, no, all this is pre-prepared?
Yeah, I think for fishball noodle soup, it's a little bit tough because the soup has soup and the fishball noodles have fishball has been pre-prepared. So usually what you can do is to be really mindful about your soup intake. So it's okay to consume it later, but best to skip most of it. That would be really ideal, because all in all, soupy dishes like fishball noodle soup can actually be a healthier option when we are dining out because of its lower calorie and lower fat content.
Right, okay. And now moving on to my next question. What effects does eating foods with high sodium content have on our blood pressure?
Okay, the relationship between sodium and blood pressure is actually very known. Unfortunately, there's some negative impact to it. What sodium does to our body, or say blood pressure, is that it actually promotes fluid retention, which result in an eventual increase in our blood pressure when we consume high amount of sodium for a long period of time.
Right. But then, from what I read, I did research as well. But for human beings in general, we do need to have sodium in our diets, right? We can't go without it. So how do we balance, in the sense that what is too much and what is too little and what's enough?
Okay, I think it's true. I think we need sodium for us to function effectively, or say healthily as well. Based on studies itself, our body needs about 500 milligram of sodium to function normally. And one thing that I always like to highlight is that don't be too worried about it, because most of us In fact, 9 out of 10 Singaporeans are consuming more than the requirement daily.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, I think the next question is probably something which everybody out there wants to know as well, especially from an expert like you. How can we eat healthily? Which I know a lot of us are not doing right now.
I think this is a very simple, but a very complex question as well. Also, because simple is because to be honest, all of us will know how to eat healthy in some way, right? We will know that we should consume more whole grains. We should opt for more white meat, right? More fruits and vegetables, less sugar, less salt and less oil. This is something that we all know what we can do to be healthier. But I think the complexity is how to do it, right? And for me, I think there are a few guiding principles. And in that sense, that I always like to say, be mindful. Be mindful about what we eat, right? For instance, we all have our guilty pleasures, right? Some of us like a bubble tea to end off the day, right? In fact, it's not uncommon for me to meet people to say that every day I must end off my stressful day with a cup of bubble tea, right? So in a week, it's easy for that someone to consume probably about 7 cups of bubble tea. So usually what I would suggest is that, okay, maybe for next week, why not let's just try with 6 cups of bubble teas instead. We just reduce it progressively and being mindful about what our guilty pleasure and cut it slowly. And in fact, it is very easy and it's much more sustainable as well also.
But I think 6 cups of bubble tea is a bit excessive as well.
Hey, but there are a lot of people who does that every day. It's very expensive as well also.
So imagine 6 cups. Who drinks 6 cups of bubble tea? Okay, and I know. Okay, so I think to add on to what you just mentioned, I think one of the biggest challenges that a lot of working people out there especially face, and not so much for those who are stay home, is how do we kind of have a balanced diet and how do we watch our diets? Because as you know, when we work, example, in the CBD area, there's only so many hawker centers or food centers that we can eat, and the choice of food is also very limited. And if I'm gonna, and it's hard for me to be aware about how many calories is inside that rice or that dish. So what's your advice for people in the working world? How do we try to keep a really balanced and healthy diet in our working lives, basically?
Okay, I think when we are dining out, there are definitely few healthier options or what we can do to make the dish a little bit healthier, right? Of course, whenever it's possible, we can always try to ask for less oil or less salt or sauces as well. There will be some very basic kind of modification that we can do to make some improvement to the dish. In general, soupy dishes, particularly those clear soups, are usually lower in calories and lower in fat. So those are something that can go for. But again, be mindful about the soup intake because that's where it's laden with salt. One of my favorite when it comes to hawker dishes would be our cai peng, our economic rice itself.
But notice those dishes. I feel that they probably have a lot of sodium as well, right? I see the way they cook as well. So
that's why the choices are very important as well. Right. So the reason why I like it is because they can be a little bit more generous with the vegetables. Right. So usually for economic rice, I'll recommend 2 vegetables, green leafy vegetables or any type of vegetables that you enjoy, and a protein. So ideally something that's non-fried. With rice, and I think nowadays there are a lot more opportunities for us to switch it to brown rice. That will be a healthier option, and of course less sauce and less gravy. That would be the best way to go.
And I don't know if this advice is good enough, good or not. But because for me, usually when I have a meal, I always try to finish off with the fruit to at the end of the meal to kind of
a sweet ending to it.
A sweet ending. And it's also healthy at the same time. Okay. And my final question for you, Kiat, I hear that the National Heart Week is coming soon. World Heart Day is coming soon. So what's the plans? Can you tell us a bit more about this event?
There's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be happening on 30th September at Toa Payoh HDB Hub. So essentially, National Heart Week World Heart Day is an annual signature event which Singapore Heart Foundation organise every year at different regions of Singapore. Okay, so for this year, we'll be at Toa Payoh. So it's something like a Heart Health Carnival. We can expect heart health games, heart health exhibition, free CPR AED certification course, free heart health talks, and a lot of exercise and games and fun to enjoy.
Okay, and I also believe that there will be people on hand to also give people advice about, like yourself, about how to eat healthy and how to exercise and all that stuff as well.
There are a lot of platforms for you to there are educational panels and a lot of things that you can bring back home to remember and to practice as well.
Right, folks, so if you happen to be free on that day, which is the 30th of September, head on down to Toa Payoh Hub to catch the event. Okay, I know I'll be there to to talk to Kiat about getting health tips as well. Alright, so once again, we want to say a very big Revv inspiration thank you to Kiat here for being on our show today. And to find out more about Revv as well, whether it's about cars, it's about lifestyle, motoring, head on over to our various platforms. Still catch you again. This is Renee and my good friend Kiat signing off.
Thank you.